So today's thoughts from 5D is about the challenge and necessity of consistency. This is thoughts from 5D. You know, so it's like I don't think that I will say anything in here that you haven't heard before, and I just think that these are the kind of messages that there's no maximum amount of times that you can say them or hear them. It would be like a religious person saying, like a Muslim. Let's take a Muslim, even though that's a little bit touchy. It's just that they pray 5 times a day, and everybody knows that for the most part. So it'd be like, hey, well, you prayed 5 times each day for a week, so probably you're good now, right? And the reality is like, no, that's not how it works. You have to keep doing this. So, in a way, I think that saying these things that need to be said and listening to these things that need to be heard is very similar to a secular version of a religious practice. So here goes nothing. As I launch into this, this journey of being public facing again, I'm finding all of the same challenges that I had kind of forgotten about while I wasn't public facing. And so much of it has to do with consistency, that the challenge to actually hit record, hit go live, and sit there when you don't necessarily feel like it. Once you get started, if I just faked it till I made it, I don't think anyone would know the difference. That's it's like I've done this enough times now. This isn't my first rodeo, to the point that I see now that what feel like major differences to me are not registered by others as major differences. Meaning, when I'm super enthusiastic and upbeat, it's not as different in how it's perceived as when I'm not, and when I have to force myself to do things. And being consistent is really like a lifestyle choice, because, like everything else in life, the thing that you want is absolutely attainable, but it requires sacrifice to get it. And, like, as an example, if you want to start a business, it might be a good idea to not go on vacation for a while. Like, and by a while, I mean 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, a year and a half, you know. And that's, in a way, like, easier said than done, because it's fun for a week, for 10 days, for a couple months, but then, the grind sets in. And the grind is really what separates things, because things need time to gestate. And as you repeat things, you get better at them. And the repetition of them makes various aspects, like the technical aspects of things, become more and more on autopilot. And then you can kind of sink into the more conceptual and creative parts of things, and have these kinds of breakthroughs that lead you to doing something that is worth taking note of. And that's that it's almost like, let me say the exact same thing a little bit differently. It's like, if you're willing to prioritize something and modify the entire rest of your life around it, then yeah, you can absolutely achieve it. But don't kid yourself as to the ramifications to your day-to-day life by doing so. And I think this is just so important to recognize, because there's so much desire now to be a creator, to be a YouTuber, to be an entrepreneur, to do all of these things. And there's this simultaneous desire to be a world traveler and to be on the go and to be at beach resorts and to be dating all the time. And trying to do both of those things simultaneously for almost everyone. Actually, I think pretty much everyone. You know, I tend to try to hedge things, but I feel pretty confident about this one. I feel like I've been around long enough to have seen it. It's not necessarily a pipe dream. It's just a recipe for burnout. It's a recipe for some kind of addiction, some kind of mental health crisis, or more importantly, for a short-termism, meaning, yeah, you can keep it up for a few years and then you burn out so hard that your life goes into shambles and it takes you years to pick up the pieces, which is, you know, it is what it is. That's an experience in and of itself, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. But if you want to do something like, you know, so Joe Rogan has the, you know, the biggest podcast in the world. And I think one of the things that is least recognized about that is that he's just been so consistent for 20 years doing it. And it built slowly, but he never paused for significant amounts of time. And it just kept evolving. The production value evolved, the format evolved, the aesthetics evolved. He as a conversator evolved, and you know, and here we are now. You know, the business acumen evolved. Like, I'm sure most people don't know that one of the original sponsors, early sponsors, was Fleshlight, right? Like a thing to help you masturbate, right? That's like kind of part of the origin story. And so, you know, things evolve. It all takes time. And so what that really means is you're signing up for like a significant commitment. And I think my experience has shown me that it's really worth your time, which again is another thing, easier said than done, to spend a significant amount of time figuring out what it even is that you care about enough that you can imagine yourself doing it for 10 years. Like, one of the things that really ended me in my last iteration as a public-facing person was that the content I was making was not sufficiently compelling to me, and it was not attracting an audience that I found like I was willing to push through to keep making content for, because I valued that audience so much. And you know, that was this is a little bit tangential, but it's also not. That was a really big part of my journey, is like, who do I want to be connected to for the next 20 years, 30 years? Who are the people where, as my public facingness evolves and I'm like, hey, I'm in Dubai, that the audience that is excited to meet me is the people that I would most want to not only engage with, but who are interested in the same things I'm interested in. And that the process of taking the time to figure that all out, I think has really left me in a place where I really don't care that much how long this journey takes, because where it leads is a place I want to go so much. I want to go there more than anything, pretty much. And I'm willing to sacrifice quite a lot and mold my life around the doing of this pretty intensely, such that the other aspects of my life may have to fall by the wayside in order for me to have sufficient energy, stability, both mentally, physically, spiritually, to just keep doing this, keep putting things out, keep going live, keep evolving, keep weathering storms. If I happen to say something that ruffles feathers and there's some kind of backlash, that it's like, okay, keep your eyes on the prize. What is the prize? Now, actually, let me give a slightly different version of this for true beginners, because in my last iteration of my public facingness, my goal was to get to 10,000 subscribers. That was like basically my only goal. And I did it. I achieved it. And as Jordan Peterson said, be careful when you set goals that aren't big enough, because once you achieve them, you may, not keep your motivation to keep doing bigger things. But the reason I had that goal is that at the time there were these YouTube spaces where you could shoot videos in really professional studios for free, as long as you had 10,000 subscribers and were located in the same place as the YouTube space. They don't exist anymore because of the Axve. And but that got me somewhere, so, but just know if you take a kind of shortcut and you're like, this is my little niche and my goal is to get to here, once you get there, you may have some kind of existential crisis. But that's okay. That's okay. We stand on the shoulders of our past selves, and that's life. We keep evolving. So, yeah, I think that's a sufficient rant about or a thought from 5D about consistency. It's really difficult. It's super difficult to be consistent, and I think that an insufficient amount of our culture is focused on what you have to give up in order to be consistent. It's like, no, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Otherwise, you either end up on too much Adderall or you kind of have a mental health crisis. It's almost like those are your options, and both of them are no bueno. And so it's like, how bad do you want it? How much do you actually want the thing that you want, such that you're willing to give up a sufficient amount of other things in order to attain it? And I think that that's really worth thinking about a lot. Like a lot. People are so biased toward action, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not biased enough toward action, but my experience has shown me that if you get somewhere and you don't like where you got, it can derail you for longer than you would think. You would think, okay, well, hey, the Tony Robbins style of like massive action. You take massive action and then you get here, and then you didn't like it there, so now you go here. And then, but what people don't see is that often you get exhausted and you have crises of meaning. And I think there's a reason that monks are known for moving slow, because the long-term vision outweighs a lot. And if you look at a lot of the most successful creators, whether it's Gary Vee or Casey Neistat or Rogan, even Emma Chamberlain, these people have just been, Dan Koh, they've just been grinding away for a long, long, long time. And with that consistency, ultimately comes something works, right? You throw enough things at the wall and something works. And if you find something that works that you also are extremely passionate about over the long term, you've basically got your little ikigai going, And I think that's the life that everyone is more or less looking for in the age of social media. So, consistency, bro, and being willing to give up your life in large part, at least 70% to your dream, I think is something that needs to be considered. And you should really think about, like, once you've given up 70% of your life, are you going to get resentful about the thing or not? Are you going to be like, yeah, this isn't easy at all, but like this is what I want to do with my life? And I think once you have that, it's just a matter of time before you have the success that you're looking for, because it just evolves slowly, and then one day you're there, and then you have new challenges to face in the fifth dimension. All right. Thoughts from 5D. Peace.
Otis5D.xyz.
Go fuck yourself.